Hello, hello, and a very literally warm welcome because it is scorching hot today in Berlin.
But it's fresh in here.
It is. It's good. Good air conditioning. Yeah. Hello, is everybody well? Yeah, good. Like the attitude. So we've already been introduced, but I will introduce you just a bit better, or a bit more in depth, actually. First of all, our next talk is called Thread by Thread: Crafting a Fashion Future, and I'm joined today by someone who's been shaping that future for quite some time. Obviously, not that long because you're still very young.
Exactly.
So, Edward. Quickly about you. You are a fashion designer specializing in knitwear. You are the Milano fashion director at The Perfect magazine, the founder of Sansovino 6, and the co-founder of We Are Made in Italy, a platform pushing for greater diversity and visibility in fashion. But most of you will probably actually know him from his time as a creative director at Bottega Veneta. Now, you bring together craftsmanship, activism, and a very personal sense of responsibility, something that we'll definitely dive into today, especially in light of today's theme, Lead and Thrive, Building the Business of Tomorrow. Edwin, first of all, a very warm welcome to you as well. Great to have you here from Milano today.
Thank you. It's a pleasure.
We've actually met, I don't know, let's say 20 years ago. We're still very young. Yeah, no, we were 15 at the time. It goes way back to school time.
Exactly.
Obviously. We'll just leave it at that.
Exactly.
But funnily enough, when I met you, I mean, I knew back then you were the creative designer for Bottega Veneta, but I didn't really do all my research about you, obviously, because I just met you on the streets. But now I've done my research. It is so fascinating, and I really want to start from the beginning. You were actually born in Ohio, Cleveland, yes. Ohio. You became an adult in New York, and then you became a professional in Milano.
1,000%.
You've designed for heritage houses to creating your own label. What would you say were some of the very early influences that really shaped your creative voice?
Wow. First of all, thank you for having me here. Berlin is like almost like a second home to me. It was actually the first European city that I ever went to.
Really?
Yeah, I had a...
How old were you? Let's not talk about it.
I don't remember.
Very young.
How old was I? I don't know. I was invited by my ex-boyfriend, Simeon. But thank you. Born in Ohio, I was born in a very loving family. Single mother, raised by a single mother. Creativity had always been a part of my upbringing, and I was encouraged to be creative. So that started, of course, with drawing. I was always a good illustrator, so it was comics and anything that kids and even into teenagers was inspired by. But I didn't know what fashion was. The context of fashion design or being a fashion designer didn't come until much later. I knew that art would be my thing. I knew that I would somehow be an artist. Being an artist wasn't really necessarily communicated to me as making money, which, as you know, in Black families, they're like, "How are you going to make those coins? What are you going to do?" So it wasn't that. But at any rate, I grew up with two brothers, and we were lower middle class family. My mother had to work 2 jobs. I was still encouraged to be creative, even if we didn't have any idea where that was going to take me to. But yeah, I had a beautiful upbringing, and Ohio was my foundation. I learned everything that I needed to know about being, a person and a creative in Ohio.
I was going to say, though, I mean, Ohio, I have to say, I wouldn't automatically think of Ohio as a creative hub. How do you even get to the point of saying, I want
There's
to
a lot of creatives that come out of Ohio, actually, interestingly enough. And there are. And listen, I think that I was raised in the sticks, I mean, I was in the city, but Ohio is like cows and wheat and, all of those things, But I think that when you are not in the center of creativity, meaning major cities, it requires you to be that much more invested and interested in finding what that means. So I just remember being a teenager and dreaming of being on the other side of that water, wherever that was, whether that be Canada, whether that be the UK. And so I lived through resources like magazines and watching things. And you have to also understand that I was a young queer boy, and no one knew about that. Not that my family later on wouldn't be completely open and supportive of that, but my mind was just spinning with all these things. It was like, oh my God, where am I going to go from here, you know? But I think that being in Ohio and being raised in Ohio informed and allowed that creativity to somehow flourish and develop. And it wasn't, I wouldn't have done that foundation anywhere else because it allowed me to be curious.
Mm-hmm. And it pushed you probably as well.
Yeah, 1,000%.
And so from there you went to New York first?
I went to New York, yeah.
Yeah, to Parsons?
Yeah, I went to New York. I didn't actually know that I was going to go to Parsons when I went to New York. So I was a window dresser, right? And I was a window dresser to make money in Columbus, Ohio. And window dressing, I don't know if you know, this was in the late 80s. It was visual merchandising allowed for creating this presentation where the people from the outside of the store were drawn in. There were enormous budgets in visual merchandising in those days. We were like doing airplanes and things in the window.
Fun.
But what happened was I was obsessed with Benetton. Mm-hmm. Obsessed. And this is kind of the early stages of me understanding what knitwear was. But remember those beautiful sweaters in the 80s? I wanted to be everything. I wanted to be all of it. But what really inspired me was the Toscani photographs and all of that beautiful united colors of everything. And I felt like I fit right into that picture because I'd never seen an advertising campaign that really reflected what I thought I was. You know, you go and buy a package of Calvin Klein underwear and there's this beautiful white man and it's like, that's actually not me and I don't have that body. So I
shouldn't buy Calvin Klein.
And you know, so all of the advertising and everything that was like, you know, reflected in that time, and even today actually, we didn't see a reflection of ourselves in. But I saw Benetton and I was like, oh my God, that's me. I later worked for Benetton and all of that, interestingly enough, that dream that I thought was there on the inside actually didn't exist because those images were created by all white people, but that's another story we'll have. We'll talk about that later. But in that moment, I was like, oh my God, this is amazing. It was just beautiful, no? And so I was like, I have to work at Benetton. I have to get a job at Benetton. Wow. So I went into the store and I had a look on, you know, it was a cute look too. I had a cute look on and I went in and I got hired at Benetton and I got hired in retail and then I started to do window display at Benetton. I worked there for many years and then I got transferred to the Gap. When I got transferred to the Gap to do window display, I was working at the Gap in Ohio and then all of my friends were leaving to go to New York, meaning my friends, my college friends. And I was like, I want to go to New York too. Like, what the fuck is going on here? I want to go to New York. So I got a transfer doing window display from Ohio, Columbus, Ohio, to New York City, not knowing where I was going to live, not knowing, I had no idea like what was going to happen there. But I got the transfer, I went there, I was like couch surfing, really. I mean, you always say like going to New York, you know, you live like on a dime. I was living on French fries and the club. And the
Very
club.
Important. The club's important.
The club's important.
It is.
I've met everyone, really, to date, like my besties, I've all met in the club. I've met everyone in the club. I met Semyon in the club. I met them all in the club. I met everyone in the club, but...
Number one lesson, meet everyone in the club.
Meet in the club, right? But the club informed so many things. Creatives.
Absolutely.
Creative Hub was in the club. Music culture was in the club. Diversity was in the club. All of those things informed like my mind that was spinning. And although after leaving the club, I didn't necessarily know I was going to go sleep, but the club existed. But yeah, that's how I arrived in New York. And then later on, I decided, okay, I want to, you know, let's say my pre-education in Ohio was really on art history. I was learning to be an artist, so color concepts, form, shape, all of those things, you know, and I started learning pattern making and illustration, so that was my real kind of core education in being an artist. So I was prepared when I went to New York, when I entered Parsons, that I knew, okay, I didn't know that I liked the idea of being a fashion designer, but I loved style, and style was related to people and how people dressed themselves, and why they chose to wear certain things, and New York informed that in the 90s in a beautiful way. So then I was prepared to go into Parsons as a designer.
And then, I mean, we're going to talk about how you went from Parsons to Milan.
Yeah.
But just circling back, because you just mentioned, and I mean, we all know that you're a huge philanthropist and you're very much into humans.
I'm very much into humans.
And that you're not just about style. How you created this initiative, Whammy, We Are Made in Italy, and I really want to talk about that. What kind of impact, first of all, how did that come about?
Right.
And what kind of impact are you seeing with that work?
Sure. Whammy was created because it was a necessity. So I've been in the Italian space for almost 30 years. And although I started in the Italian space at the helm of this beautiful, incredible luxury house, and I met the owner in New York City, and after I met her the first time, 2 weeks later, I was flying to Italy. And so what happened? I'll tell you a short story. So I met Laro Motedo. I don't know what it was, but we spoke the same language. You know, she's an incredible, I mean, I'm still in touch with her, incredible woman. But we had a great conversation, and she was like, okay, you're hired, we can go start to design some clothes. I was really green, I had no idea. I mean, I knew what I liked, and I somehow felt I had a taste level and an idea, but I didn't know how to make luxury. I didn't know what the hell luxury was. For me, it was like getting dressed every day was, you know, the luxury that
Basics,
I had.
yeah.
Yeah. But so I flew to Venice. Bottega Veneta was based in Vicenza. Vicenza is a small town which is close to Venice. I arrived in the airport in Venezia, and they stopped me. So still 90s, I have long dreadlocks, I probably had a sweatshirt on and some baggy jeans. It was just the way that I dress, right? The police surrounded me and they said, give me the drugs, right? Of course. Now, mind you, I smoke cigarettes now, but I had never done drugs. I was like clean as like anything else. I had none of those qualities, and I was kind of shocked. But what ended up happening is I was strip searched, cavity searched.
Wow.
Cavity searched. I had to call Bottega, the people from Bottega Veneta, to come pick me up. So this was my first introduction in Italy, going into Europe, and that experience informed what would come. You know, many years later, it informed my relationship with the city or the country, knowing that what I was coming from was going to be very different from what I was going into. Vicenza or the Veneto at that time were very few black and brown people. I was one, even in Italy, of very few creatives that were working in the fashion space. I knew a guy at Jill Sander, there was Lauren Steele, there was other creatives that were in the space, but I was one of few. Which takes me back to Whammy, the acronym Whammy, We Are Made in Italy. 2020, George Floyd happened. What was happening in America and what was happening globally, we understood affected us. As black and brown people, but as people in general, what really affected us. But what I realized is that in the Italian fashion space, they were pointing over there and saying, look what's going on over there. They have a problem. They need to work that out. And I was like, wait a minute, bitches. Like, this is really a problem. You know, in this space. I knew that if I were not going to do it with my experience and my reach, because I was able to call, I was able to reach and talk to people, it was the only thing that I could think of as my responsibility. So Stella Jean, who is a Haitian-Italian creative director based in Italy, Michel Ngomo, who is the founder of Afro Fashion Association, which exists in Italy that no one even knew existed, we came together and we said, okay, this is what we're going to do. We're going to create somehow a manifesto. And we're going to pitch this to the Central Fashion Council, and we're going to say, these are the problems that we have. We don't have black and brown people that are inside of these companies. We know we're not on the outside. We're only used as window display. We hire models. We hire all of these things. We pay them, and we put them up front. But when you look inside of these companies, non-existent. So this was created to sift young talents that we have access to into these companies somehow by internship, by finding them mentorships, by finding them money. The whole process was to encourage youth, black and brown people, to be in this industry and help them into it. But it was also by way of cultural exchange, because a lot of these Afro-Italians, they come from Senegal, they come from Nigeria, they come from China, and we wanted this kind of cross-cultural contamination to say, these people are here, they speak with a Milanese accent, they just do not look the same as you because they're not the same color as you, but they're Italians. So we are all made in Italy. So that was the
beautiful
purpose.
message, and it's just so crazy. I always, when I talk, please. I still personally find it so sad that we have to talk about this.
Yeah.
And I mean, we're talking about Italy. I mean, this is not some third world country, or I mean, the fact that we, or even you were just saying,
pasta.
very good pasta.
Yeah.
No, but what I wanted to say is, you were saying there were so few black people back then in the industry, in the forefront, but still, I mean, if you think about Virgil, Pharrell, I mean, you can literally count it with two hands, Wills Bonner, and that's about it, it feels.
Yeah.
So it's so important that you do this work, but I still find it slightly sad, actually, that we still have to do this sort of educational work. But it's thank you for doing that, really. Now, going back, because we wanted to talk about this, then we also want to talk about, we've got a few subjects today, circularity. Now, recycling, bit of a different subject. People think of recycling materials when you think about circularity, but I know that you actually see it a lot more holistically.
Sure.
What does circularity really mean for you?
Well, I mean, we think about the definition of circularity, it's what returns, no? And I think when we're thinking in the fashion, I'll tell you this, when I first started Sansovino Say, which was my second collection, my namesake collection, it was Sansovino 6, Sansovino Say, which is the address of the building. There was nothing conceptual about it, it was just the fucking name, no? And so Sansovino 6 was started, for me, also out of necessity. Necessity means, I mean, there's several things, necessity. No one was hiring me. I was at the top of the game, okay? I was the creative director of this company that had been erased, this story. I exited, and
just
it's
quickly,
not like...
because we do need to talk about that. This is so crazy when I did my research. I mean, what do you mean you were erased?
We're going to come back to that.
Erased.
We're going to come back to that.
Please,
but when I started Sansovino 6, I was like, out of necessity, meaning, okay, I have to do something to kind of secure what my creativity is and how I communicate that to people. I didn't have the money to do so. So I was like, well, why don't I just use things that exist, kind of put them together based on style and decision making. I work in knitwear. I'm a specialist in knitwear, so I brand myself as a knitwear specialist. Even at that time, I wasn't like perfectly technical in knitwear, but I was able to convince the others that I was because the things look cute, you know? But I created this thing from scratch, and I thought to myself, wow, this is the future of how we create and using what already exists. So I was going into old factories, getting yarns, getting colors, and creating new things. Circularity for me means, sustainability we can't talk about within the fashion space as being something that's 100%, because it's not. It's impossible at this point. But what we can do in our space, when we talk about sustainability, we also have to talk about, from my perspective in factories, water usage. We have to talk about how long are our people working? Do they work normal work days? At 6 o'clock, go home. Basta, we're done, no? You know, there's all of these things that you think about in the context of creating a company, especially in the fashion space, about how we treat our people, what are the materials we're using, the longevity. You know, it's for me, it's about honesty, you know? And we can't talk about sustainability and circularity within that context about really thinking about who we're hurting while doing it.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
And Sansovino 6 is actually one material, one factory, and one city. That's
Exactly.
the theme
Yeah,
behind it, which I think is brilliant. Do you find that having that is actually a limitation to your design process? I'm assuming not. And why exactly did you make that choice? I'm assuming that's because of circularity and sustainability.
Well, of course, and it's not. And I come from, I think, I come within the idea of thinking that why does everything have to be big? Why can't we do it great and small and intimate and talk to and speak to the consumers that are interested in what we have to say creatively? We don't all have to be Vuittons, you know? We can be really small realities. We can have intimate relationships with the consumer. We can have intimate relationships with the factories. I'm about craft. I really am. And I can't work in any other way. I have to go to the factory. I have to touch. I have to feel. You know, there's emotion in the creative process for me. And that is just the honesty that I work in. So many young designers come into this space, or creatives in general, come into this space, and they just want to be famous. And I've never had any interest in what that meant. I've always worked with the idea that I have to love first what I create, and if others love it in the same time, then that's perfectly fine. And I love you for it, but it's not necessary. It's not the necessity. And we have to use digital communication and what we communicate responsibly, because that is what people see. That's how they're going to read you. So it's just my process. I couldn't work any other way.
And now you're just saying, actually, oh, wow, it's already 20 minutes over. No, I'm only in question number 4. I'm not having this. We need to talk some more. Okay, guys, you want to stay a bit longer? Okay. Right. Well, what I did want to just say about Sansovino 6, and actually that I personally find it so great that we have so many people who are interested in young designers who are doing slow fashion, made to order, which I think is a great trend.
Yeah.
Now, since we have to wrap things up, I'm going to just fast forward. Let's talk about the future then quickly.
Oh.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, let's talk about the future, which is looking great, I'm hoping. No, is there something that you would like to tell us? Actually, no, I'm going to rewind on that. We're not going to talk about the future a little bit, but because we have people here who really want to get some great advice from you, maybe young designers or someone who, what would you advise to someone who wants to go out there into the fashion world and make it big? Or not about making big, but setting a mark.
Listen, work with intent and honesty. It's the only thing that I can do. I know that building up this career that I have today, it didn't happen with just Edward Buchanan being a creative. It happened with the people that I collaborate with. It happened with the people that supported me when I had nothing. It happened with a supportive and beautiful family and boyfriend and friends. You know, all of those things are really important. I know that today, the only reason that I still exist and am encouraged in this space is because my name is on the door. And I say this because when we don't find opportunity that's like reaching out at us, and we don't find support coming from the outside, we have to figure out how to create that within ourselves. It's FUBU. I don't know if you know what FUBU is. For us, by us. You gotta build it up. You gotta build it up strong and hard. And then when you have the opportunity, you have to reach out and you have to pull the others in. And pulling the others in doesn't just mean, you know, pulling in because you need someone that's you have to pull in with intent. So you have to pull in those people who a reflection of you, who you know didn't have the opportunity, that are extremely creative and may need a little bit longer to develop, and I take that risk. My team is about risk. So by having my name on the door means that I craft the table, I build it up strong like a Bauhaus, you know? I craft the chair, I build it up myself. I don't need you to invite me to the seat. We create the seat ourselves, and then we all come in.
Amazing. Thank you so much.
Yeah?
I genuinely could have talked for hours. And I'm very sad that this is over. But thank you so much, everyone, for listening. Thank you, Edward, for being here today. And we're going to continue our conversation without microphones.
Exactly. We'll keep it going. Thank you very much for inviting me here.
Thank you so much.